Our next speaker is Mr. Razaq, who is the CTO of Huawei Smart PV MEA region. He is a consummate professional and trusted advisor for his clients. He will be sharing perspectives on the benefits of Huawei Smart PV solution in commercial and industrial scenarios for enterprise customers.
Hello, my name is Rizwan. I'm the CTO for Middle East and Africa region. Hope you're all well, and thank you again for attending today's session. Today's session will be talking about optimum electricity cost and active safety for the CNI applications of projects in the Middle East and Africa region. Huawei Green Power solution for enterprises starting a new era of low carbon footprint, from solar PV optimizers, the application of the mobile phone, the small inverters, as well as the largest string inverter as well. So today's discussion will be talking about several scenarios, company introduction, and in particular from my section we'll be talking about the Huawei CNI Smart PV solution, along with the product portfolio. So in reference to the CNI applications, here is an overview of the solutions provided by Huawei and the product ranges that are available. So with the CNI applications, you are able to use a full optimizer solution if you wish to do so, or alternatively, for the larger applications, if you don't wish to intend to use an optimizer, that can also be applied on the system as well without optimizers. So we have, from the inverter perspective, we have the 12 to 20 KTL inverters, which have 2 MPPTs and 4 inputs. And then we have our new latest product, which has just been released in H2 this year, which is the Sun 2030 to 40 KTL M3 range. And this is built in with all of the features and has 4 MPPTs and 8 inputs. With a product that's been operating for many years now, which is the 50 and 60 KTL M0, 6 MPPTs and 12 inputs, and our largest CNI applicable inverter, which is the 100 KTL M1. As I explained, we have the optimizers that are available for particular product ranges, which are classed as the M2 or M3 range, and they are available for uses in multiple different scenarios. As for monitoring purposes, we have the Huawei Smart Dongle FE and also the 4G as well. These particular devices are only available for particular inverters and are up to a limitation of 10 inverters. Now, as for the CNI applicable projects, you may be more opted to have a zero export functionality or limiting the export. So Huawei is also providing a smart power sensor that can be used for the functionality to communicate with the inverters or data loggers. Now, coming into the larger applicable CNI projects, the largest inverter being the 100 KTL M1, which would be the most opted choice to use, can be applied using the smart logger device or alternatively the smart dongle device, depending on how many inverters you are intending to be using. So less than 10, we can look at using the Wyland FE or the 4G device, or alternatively for larger applicable projects, we can use the Smart Logger 3000A data logger supplied from Huawei. Huawei is also offering the Huawei monitoring platform, which is called the FusionSolar platform, and that pulls the data directly from site and displays it on a third-party server, which is hosted, and then that information is then available from our partners as well as our clients as well, to access that data and configure with the products that are on site as well. So our latest product, as I mentioned, the 30, 36 and 40 KTL M3, which has just been recently released, is the high efficiency product with efficiencies of 98.7, multiple MPPTs of 4 MPPTs and 8 inputs, a very wide operating range of 200 to 1000 volts, allowing the inverter to start up earlier and finish later in the day. A high current output of 26 amperes, which is more usable for the high power modules that are available in the market, and the trend is changing for higher density PV modules. A compact design and also an IP protection of IP66, allowing it to be applied for all scenarios. So for the optimizer itself, we have one standard optimizer, and that optimizer can be used on all applications. So it's a capacity of 450 watts maximum power with 80 volts input voltage, and it has a high efficiency of 99.5%. An IP68, as it would be installed outdoors on the rooftop of the backside of the PV module, and it's our second generation optimizer now, and the second generation optimizer benefits from a 50% smaller density size compared to the previous generation. Going into optimum electricity cost is the next topic, and we're going to look into that in a bit more detail. So coming into that, so when we're looking at the system cost itself, you are looking into 3 different factors. So you've got the cumulative yields that are assessed in detail, the BOS costing, as well as the O&M costs associated with your PV system. So with the smart PV solution offered by Huawei, the yields with multiple MPPTs, lower self-consumption, and longer string designs, no vulnerable parts from the perspective of the O&M, as well as the costs associated, such as the long string and optimizer benefits, can benefit an overall lower LCOE factor for your particular project. Coming into the section of optimizers, you can benefit by achieving up to around 30% more energy with the optimizers being installed on your particular PV plant. So how does that happen? So basically you will have multiple different impacts on your roof that are causing shading on your PV modules. And that can be from obstacles or from debris from modules not being cleaned routinely. Now, as we all understand, if a particular PV module is having an impact on its performance, it would impact the complete string. So with the optimizers being installed on the PV modules, they are able to have a isolation of that particular module in its production power, and the remaining PV modules are able to output their maximum capacity. So as an overall, you can further benefit on up to 30% more energy with the use of optimizers on the CNI applicable projects. So in coming into the topic of longer string designs, and as the module area is changing, the high power modules are having a lower voltage along with a higher current. Now with the optimizers being installed, the actual voltage as a string would be lower, allowing you to adopt to a more aggressive AC to DC ratio if required with your PV plant with the use of optimizers. So this can be really beneficial where projects are facing multiple orientations, or particular having shading from particular areas or across different rooftops applied. With all the Huawei inverters being supplied to the market for the CNI and utility scale applications, Huawei has adopted a 2 strings per MPPT design. Now, as we can see from the slide here, where there is a product with a single MPPT, that inverter would be overall be impacted in its performance compared to a product which has multiple MPPTs. And if one particular MPPT was to be impacted by a shade, it will only impact that particular string itself or MPPT rather than the overall inverter itself. Now, when we look at MPPT and mismatch in particular, that can come from various different scenarios. One being shading, as the one which most of us are aware of. Others are the azimuth and the angle and the tilt angle of the PV modules themselves. Now, this is something which generally the design and engineering is accommodated for. However, when the PV plant is being installed or being operated, these things are changing very slightly and will have an impact on your PV plant. So on the right-hand side, you can see a clear example of two particular projects for a short period of time where they are installed side by side with a 20 kilowatt inverter by another manufacturer compared to a Huawei 20 kilowatt inverter. Now you can see that the production power is approximately 1.56% more with this multiple MPPT design. PID is one of the key aspects where it can affect your health of your PV array itself, and in particular with the PID happening in more environments with high temperature, high humidity, the PV modules get impacted, and you can have an output of around 30% less than what you are expecting when the PID is occurring on your particular PV system. Now, the PID is something which is occurring on the PV modules themselves. However, the solution offered by Huawei is to accommodate for the anti-PID solution. So the inverter is able to compensate that effect from further degrading your PV system itself. Now, one thing I would like to mention here is this particular feature is available in particular inverters and is then enabled when you're commissioning the system itself, and it's not enabled on the standard platform. So you would need to enable it when commissioning and setting up your product itself for the PV plant. So here is a clearer example of the products that are available with this PID recovery function. So it's a 12 to 20 KTL M2, 30 to 40 KTL M3, and the 100 KTL M1 products that have this feature available on it. So compared to other vendors in the market, there will need to be an additional item purchased or additional costs associated to having a PID recovery function on their system. Now, generally, you're probably thinking from the PID aspect, my modules are PID free. Now, the aspect of PID free is not totally eliminated, and it's just a process in terms of standard that the modules need to go through in order to be PID free and be qualifying to that statement. And what we found is that the particular PV modules are more prone to be exposed to PID in, for example, high temperature or high humidity environments. Coming into the proving that the solution of the PID, as I mentioned, the yield can be reduced substantially with the risk of PID happening. So with the PID recovery function enabled on the PV system, on a particular case here in China, in a carport, this function was enabled, and you can see that there was a yield difference which is growing more and more as the months go on. The next topic will be the active safety. Now, active safety is something which we're all well aware of in terms of safety of your PV system itself, and in particular arcing that can be quite prone to PV systems, and in particular on the DC side where the safety aspect is more challenging. So electrical arcing is threatening the safety of the PV system and underlying the building itself, and we've seen many cases that have been installed. There's one case in the US where the risk of fire has spread on a Walmart project, and this has been a substantial case reference for this. Now, what causes electrical arcing? Three of the cases which I'm more aware of is the unreliable soldering joints within the modules themselves, others being the broken PV cables, and this is generally happening as the project is aging. And the thirdly is the loose PV connectors, and this is something which generally gets missed or can be missed on the O&M perspective. So AI-powered active arc protection. So what does this mean? So Huawei is supplying a AFCI, so arc fault circuit interrupter function within the inverter itself. It's a self-learning new arc feature, accurately protecting the system from arcing. Now, how does that do it? It's self-learning. It's a new feature with the AI model. Specifically, an arc fault protection by the inverter can shut down in less than 0.5 seconds. So as soon as that arc is predominantly happening, there is a feature within the inverter which stops the circuit from continuing. And on the next slide here, you can clearly see a PV arc with and without the AFC function. So unfortunately on the slide today, it's not playing videos, but on the left hand side with the function not enabled, the spread of the arc is causing a high temperature, which then allows the fire to continue and then spread very rapidly. Now on the right hand side, with the function enabled, this function is very quickly stopped within less than 0.5 seconds, and their alarm is detected on the PV system to then indicate that there is something wrong on your PV string itself. So CNI tailored enhanced active arcing protection. One of the projects or constraints with the CNI projects is the cable length. So cable length from the PV string itself going back to the inverter can be quite long on the larger CNI projects. So AFCI is something which is limited to a particular length and also a particular current limit as well. Now that's to the UL 1699B standard. And as you can see there, it's limited to 80 meters and a current of around 16 amps. Now, as we all know, with the longer cable lengths and inverters being installed in plant rooms, for example, the length can be more than this particular case of 80 meters, and in some cases around 200 meters. So Huawei has accommodated for these constraints, allowing for 200 meter cable lengths from the PV string itself going back to the inverter, and also increasing the current flow, which is going back in particular for the bifacial modules that are becoming available in the industry. So optimizers, back to the subject of the optimizer, the 0 voltage level shutdown and touch safety. So with the projects being installed on the rooftops, with an optimizer being selected and being installed on each PV modules themselves, the voltage which is exposed to on the roof project itself is low and is down to 0 volts, and that can be easily worked on and more easily to operate for the safety of your personnel on your O&M project. Now, when having the optimizers installed on the projects themselves, the optimizers are doing a module level detection. So what does that mean? So arc fault position for the easy troubleshooting. So as soon as there is a particular problem that is happening on your particular PV modules themselves, the optimizer is able to detect which PV module is being impacted, and it will then give you an alarm indicating which PV module is having that problem. And your engineer on site can then safely get to that site, isolate that problem, and fix and rectify that problem more rapidly, more quickly than the traditional solution where you are self-diagnosing where the issue is arising from. The next subject we will be talking about is this better experience using the products and solutions offered by Huawei. So a leading technologies brings a better experience. So from the module auto mapping system, which is available from the inverters, along with the module diagnostics. So features such as the IV curve diagnostic that can be available from Huawei for the CNI applicable projects. So in sense of the optimizers themselves, when you are installing multiple solar modules on the rooftop, as well as optimizers on the rooftop, the increase in labor and workmanship that is required can be quite extensive. So Huawei's adopted in an auto mapping system. So when you are installing the optimizers, the QR codes can be peeled off very easily, laid out onto a piece of paper, and easily taken a photo and mapping that into the software of the FusionSolar. So comparing that with a traditional solution where you are scanning multiple different QR codes, that can be quite labor intensive and take longer to install. So it's a shorter installation time compared to the traditional solution. And one of the key aspects from the inverter perspective, which Huawei is continuing to develop, is the natural cooling ventilated from the telecom and solar applicable projects. So as you're all aware, Huawei has been developing telecom equipment for over 30 years now. And in that period of time, Huawei has learned and understood what are the constraints with certain components which are being used on devices. So one of them being the fans, for example, and the development of the heatsink on particular devices. So you can clearly see here that we've extracted certain devices such as the fuses. We've also extracted devices such as the LCD screen, and also there's no physical buttons available on the inverters themselves. So how do you physically commission the inverter itself? So it's all done through your mobile phone. And as for the cooling of the inverter, as you can see there on the top right hand side of the screen, the heatsink is clearly developed for where the high hot spotting is within the internal device of the product itself. So there is more surface area available for the cooling of that particular area of the inverter. And this is something that we've collaborated with TUV for multiple different projects, where they've verified that the failure rate is less than 0.5% and an availability up to 99.996% was achieved. The smart dongle supports up to 10 devices. So one of the devices would be a master inverter with the Wyland FE or the 4G dongle installed. And the other inverters would be slaves, and they would be connected using RS485. Now, it's a quicker, easier installation process, and it's more cheaper and more cost effective to go with this option, especially for the smaller CNI projects. Going into the maintenance of your PV system itself. So one of the offerings from Huawei that we are available this year is the IV curve diagnostic. So IV curve is a voltage and current curve to show how healthy your string is compared to how it should be performing from factory. So with the string level monitoring functionality built inside of the inverter with an accuracy of 0.5%, Huawei is able to develop 14 types of module faults from your PV system and indicate them clearly on your monitoring platform, with a report method, which is once again approved by TÜV. So with the IV curve diagnostic being deployed for multiple years now, there's around 7 gigawatts of projects being using this application worldwide. There is some common failures that we have found on particular PV projects, and those particular faults are from string short circuit all the way to string voltage abnormal. So what does those mean? So these problems can be identified using a software rather than physical labor on site. So having this application available, you can ensure that the project is performing as close to 100% as possible, and then you could then isolate those particular problems and get them rectified in job cards and when there is a maintenance inspection due for the site. So 8 innovations to support the optimum electricity cost. So how does that work? So you've got multiple different inverters that can be used. You've got the AI-powered active arcing protection. We call this the AFCI functionality. 0 volt module level shutdown for the safety aspect with the optimizer. You've got the CNI tailored active arcing protection, and once again, it's going beyond the standards that are available in the industry currently, and this makes us differ compared to other products in the market. And then looking into the 30% more energy that can be optimized when there is the risk of the optimizer itself. Built-in PID recovery functionality. So with this function already incorporated within the inverter, you can further enhance your system from generating and not lose performance on your PV system itself. Auto mapping system available, the no fuse and no vulnerable parts within the product itself, and the IV curve diagnostic from the monitoring perspective on the monitoring platform. So just to kind of conclude, I've given multiple different scenarios and cases and features that are available from Huawei for the CNI projects. And just to conclude, I would like to just kind of highlight some of the products that are available and what kind of features are available in each particular product. So with each product, we've generated a next generation, as you can see. So as an example, we have the 36 KTL, which was a mass-produced product for multiple years now. And we've now just recently launched the Huawei Sun 2030, 36 and 40 KTL M3 inverters, which have all of the features built within the product itself. Now, we have a newer version of the 12 to 20 KTL M2, and then for the largest type of string inverter for the CNI projects is the 100 KTL M1, which has all of the features such as the smart dongle capabilities. We also have the features of the IV curve diagnostic and the PID recovery functionalities and the AFCI, which is incorporated with this latest product. Finally, I would just like to share with everybody a few reference cases for the Africa market that we've had. So this is a large utility scale project of around 22 megawatts, and it's been installed in Western Africa, in Senegal. So the inverters are installed on the end of the roads, with those inverters then connected directly to the strings locally to them. Another rooftop project that is installed in the Northern Africa region in Morocco, a 1.5 megawatt, and this been operating very comfortably for just under 5 years now, and will be performing very well for the project itself. Another project in Western Africa, located in Ghana, 20 megawatts, which has been used and installed for around two years now. Coming into another project in Eastern Africa this time. This is in Kenya, a 50 megawatt project. We're using the Huawei inverters since 2018. Another project of 54 megawatts in Zambia, that's using thin film PV modules for their system itself. And this has been operating for just under 2 years as well. So for the C&I, here's one good case reference using the 50 and 60 kTL inverters, and it's a 1.25 megawatt project and installed just over 1 year ago now on a commercial rooftop project. Thank you all for listening. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and if you have any further questions from the technical perspective, please do feel free to reach out to myself. I'm Rizwan Razaq. I'm the CTO for the Middle East and Africa region. Thank you once again, and goodbye.